Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. Is nature efficient? Because if you look inside a beehive, you'll notice row upon row of almost identical hexagons. It could be because the hexagon is a robust structure, but there is something more than just structure at play. To create the hive, the bees have to produce wax, and that's so labor-intensive that the bees have to fly the equivalent of 12 times around the earth just to produce 1 pound of wax. Bear in mind that the hexagon isn't the only shape that's available to the bees. They could use other shapes. But circles aren't the right solution because there are gaps when you lay them alongside each other. Squares, on the other hand, they work fine, so do equilateral triangles. But they all need a substantial amount of wax to create the network. And it's in hexagons. Hexagons provide that solid structure and require considerably less wax. The hexagons help the bee to be just a little bit lazy. If we look around us, nature itself is lazy. Bubbles, bees, trees, nature itself follows rigid rules, but it does so to be economical. What nature is always doing is trying to use the least amount of energy. And that least amount of energy is what we humans call a bad habit. All habits require energy, but bad habits seem to feel more comfortable. While the energy used in both good and bad habits might be approximately the same from a purely scientific point of view, it is completely different from a behavioral angle. When we do something naughty, we believe that it takes a lot less effort and seems to deliver a much greater reward. But at some point, we want to make a change. And this series is about the stuff that you want to stop doing. And in it, we explore not just what we do, but how the world shapes us. That world that's around us, how it shapes us. So here's what we'll cover. We'll cover 3 things: how design changes habits, the crucial link between energy and habits, and the myth of 21 to 60 days, which is required to build a habit. Let's get started with the first topic, which is how design changes habits. Which of these 2 statements is true? People are stupid, or people aren't stupid? Life is hard. We got the answer to this question in 2 hotel rooms, one in Holbox Island, which is in Mexico, and the other in Houston, Texas. When we checked into the hotel in Houston, there were 2 bottles of water waiting for us, 2 plastic bottles. The next day, we got 2 more. Our entire stay in the US was about 10 days in all, so we got 20 bottles of water. When we got to Mexico, there were also 2 bottles, but glass bottles. And there were instructions to get any additional water from the central water dispenser, which was outside the room. In Houston, we were given 20 bottles of water, whereas in Mexico, we used only 2. But before we jump to any conclusion, let's examine another aspect of both the hotels. In Mexico, the hotel changed the sheets and towels every day. And in Houston, in the 20-bottle hotel, the sign said, "If you put this sign on your door, we will not clean your room, and you will get a $5 voucher or points to your account." It means that the housekeeping in Mexico changed 20 towels and at least 10 sheets, while in Houston, they potentially changed none, simply because of the intelligent rewarding system. In In the middle of all of this waste and no waste were Renuka and me. Now, we are fussy about waste so much that we put out the garbage only once in every 6 months. In fact, the other day we put out the garbage once a year. In short, we're conscious of plastic and we take a lot of effort to be environmentally conscious as far as possible. Now, we were just pawns in this game of water bottles and bed sheets. And yet our waste at these hotels increased or decreased based just on one factor, which was design. Design itself can bring a significant change in habits. I've been sitting at my computer for the past 2 hours at least, and I haven't taken a break. By any standards, that's a bad habit, and possibly bad for the back in the long run. Now, it's not like I don't have a reminder on my computer. It's not like I don't have my phone jiggling and wiggling. But when it starts to do any of that stuff, I turn it off. No matter whether it's a pop-up on the screen or an alarm going off, I will stay resolutely in my chair. Yet, there is one alarm that I can't turn off, and it's the call of nature. When I sit down at my desk, I have a full glass of water, and if I sip at that water, I could theoretically sit at my desk forever. But like most of us, I gulp. I take big, distracted gulps of water, and in about 30 minutes, there is no option but to stand up, and in some cases, to run. Which, as you can see, is a design solution to the problem of not standing up and not taking a walk often enough. It's simple, yet it's very effective, and it's all down to design. It's the design that creates the habit. The Dutch take design to a whole countrywide level with a concept that's called the Dutch Reach. In many countries, cyclists are treated like vermin. Not so in the Netherlands, where cycling is almost like a national religion. But cars exist side by side with cycles, and it's not uncommon for a car owner to flip open the car door just as the cyclist comes along. To avoid this problem from recurring, every car driver is taught the Dutch Reach. This requires the driver to reach for the door handle with the far hand. That means instead of just reaching for the door, you reach for it with the other hand, and so your head turns around and now you get this side view of anything coming along, and most often it's a cyclist. The natural habit, which is the most efficient one, just to reach for the door, can be changed simply by design. The habits were changed by design. And when we think of habits, we think of willpower, we think of persistence. Those elements of grit, willpower, and perseverance, they play a role, but trying to create and enforce a good habit is almost like fighting our natural method of efficiency. No one woke up in a cave 2 million years ago and decided to go for a run. No one decided to start a diet. Instead, they probably bit their nails, they were gluttons, they slept a lot, and they didn't need to write articles. So these are all the things: being largely lazy, saving their energy, using that energy only for food. That's what kept our ancestors alive. And that's why so many of our so-called habits are easier to revert to, simply because they are incredibly efficient. Which is why the concept of people are stupid can coexist quite well along with people aren't stupid, life is hard. All living creatures act stupid from time to time because they want a shortcut, they want some efficiency. And so we go down that road of productivity because it's hard-coded in nature itself. Life is hard. Why make it harder? But given great design or even functional design, many, if not most of us, will go with the design and we'll change our habits without the need for any persistence or willpower. However, design can't stand alone. It needs a partner, and it needs a bouncy partner. And that partner is called energy. Which is quite ironic when you think about it, because the design of the beehive was energy-based. Energy is so easy to overlook that it is precisely what we seem to ignore. And yet, how we get our energy is mostly what causes the habit to endure. For instance, what causes one student to say that maths is her favorite subject? And what if the same student considered maths to be the most horrible subject that was ever dumped on humanity? How can such a paradox exist? Is it because of maths? Or do students hate maths because of the energy? That energy has been badly used. This takes us to the second part, where we look at the crucial link between energy and habits. Do I like to exercise? My wife Renuka does. She will happily do an hour or more of yoga, and if no yoga mat is handy, she will go for a walk. On the other hand, I detest exercise. I went for a whole year to yoga class, and I groaned through it all, every last bit of it. If you ask me point blank, do I like to exercise? My answer is no. I go for a walk almost every day, and we average about 7 to 10 kilometers a day, yet I don't like to walk. But there is a nuance that's missing in this I don't like walking story, isn't there? Because it's not that I don't like to walk, it's that walking the same route bores me to tears. Gyms are the worst place for me, but even the incredible scenery and the beach that we pass every day, it does nothing for me. It's not that I'm not grateful. I love living in Auckland, but I get little or no energy from the walk because the scenery, at least for me, looks the same. But you put me on a different route and I come to life again, which is why I would happily walk for hours in Tokyo or Barcelona, because everything is new and everything is different. And if we do 8 kilometers here in Auckland, we tend to do twice as much on our trips simply because I find it all so energy driven. I find that it fills up my brain with new stuff. And it's the same thing at workshops. I will run around the stage giving a presentation or go back and forth at workshops. And if you put me on a badminton court or a football field, I'll probably end up with strained muscles from trying too much, too hard, for too long. Which goes to show that it's not that I don't like exercise. I love to exercise, but there is a nuance in place. And that nuance is energy. If the activity is new, it's different, or less repetitive, then it's exciting for me. But the sameness of the routine, that everyday activity, causes me to want to give up very quickly. Which may also explain why kids don't like maths. Maths is not the problem. It has never been the problem. Take my niece Marcia, for instance. If you ask Marcia which is her favorite subject, she doesn't need to think. It's maths, of course. But if you were to get into a time capsule and go back to when she was 9, maths was her most hated subject. If you go back in your own life, you'd probably agree that you're pretty grown up by 9. If you've hated maths for 9 years, it's unlikely the hate would turn around even just a little, let alone become a favorite. But if you look at it through the eyes of energy, then the explanation is pretty clear. Marcia is energized by stickers. A single pack of stickers that costs $2 can keep Marcia going for months on end. When she first started learning maths on the iPad, the app that we used was some weird fish game, and she got a prize as one fish for solving the problem. Marcia loved the fish, and she couldn't collect enough of them. And yes, other methods are being used to make her get all excited about maths, but it's all energy related. Almost every step of the way, it's what brings energy to Marcia. At this stage, she's managed to solve, wait for it, 19,000 problems on a maths program called IXL. This is probably in addition to another 10,000 more problems that she's done on paper. But Marcia wasn't always this keen on maths. At one point, she was being sent for classes after school, which she still recalls with horror. At school as well, she was being sent for extra classes, and she hated every moment of it. She felt drained, and it's no wonder that she hated maths with such a vengeance. As you'd suspect, this kind of energy drain or gain doesn't just apply to kids, but it applies to adults as well. We conduct an article writing course which takes 12 weeks. It's called the toughest writing course in the world. And more or less, it lives up to its reputation. Now, you'd expect that clients would run 1,000,000 miles in the opposite direction because this is going to be so tough. But for years, we've had a waiting list, and one of the reasons for that list is that the course promises a precise result. The result is that you can write magazine quality articles in 45 to 60 minutes. But then we all sign up for courses and we abandon them along the way. So why would a course see a 90 to 95% result rate? It's not because of completion, because completing a course is like school. You finish school, great, yay, you finish school. It's an achievement to finish, but we all want results that bring us energy. And clients don't just want a result, they want that energy along the way. The course creates a system of gold stars, which are not unlike Marsha stickers. It also creates groups that are specially picked. There are other systems that are all tested to keep the energy high. When you look at a course, all you see is information packed from one end to the other. But that's work, that's more work. And while people are happy to work, they also want to play. There are days when the assignment is a 10-minute assignment, and then the groups can chat with each other via the forum or through chat itself. Bad habits, when you look at bad habits, they are fun all the time, which is why they're so energy-driven. Good habits are almost always hard work. They're always about willpower. They're always about resistance. Sorry, not resistance, persistence. This means that we have to find a way to energize how we approach the habit. When I go for a walk, which I don't care much about, I listen to podcasts and audiobooks. While Renuka is busy getting energized with the rising sun and the waves, I have a blast soaking in knowledge. And when I have to write an article, I jump on WhatsApp and I have an hour-long chat with a client or a friend on a topic, and it seems like a complete waste of time. Why would you do that? You have to write an article. But what I do is I talk about the stuff and we go back and forth, and what happens is I get energized with all that activity, sometimes 5 or 6 WhatsApp groups going at the same time, and the entire article then becomes this energizing activity, and then I can put it together and we have an article. Now, you might be not the kind of person who does it this way. You might be the person who loves quiet and solitude. Then that's your source of energy. And this whole energy business is different from reward, because reward is what you get after you finish everything. But the energy you're getting while you're going through the whole exercise, and the live conversation, the chats, they enrich me as quiet might enrich somebody else. And that's the energy that you get. And that's what helps you get to the end point. That's what makes that habit so worthwhile. So trying to find that energy, what makes you get through that to the end, is really what we're looking for. And when design and energy merge, then we get a significant boost in our habits. So I'll give you an example. We teach a course in how to draw cartoons. And when we started the course almost 10 years ago, I wasn't in favor of digital art, because I said, look, I've been using Photoshop, but it has a steep learning curve, so why don't you just do it on paper? So we got people to get pencils and papers and erasers and all that stuff. And I was obsessed with paper as a learning tool. And I was perplexed when 2 clients were showing me their work on an iPad much later. And it took me a while to realize how much mobile technology had progressed and how much easier it was than Photoshop. There's a lot of energy required in learning any new skill. It's like the brain has to turn on 300 lights to figure out how to get the task done. And when you get more fluent, it probably turns on 200, then 100, then 50. These are just lights in your head, of course. And finally, just a few lights and you're on your way. Which is why when you have a device like the iPad and you have an app like Procreate, it creates an astounding combination of energy and design. The iPad allows you not just to draw, but to trace, to color. And these are three core elements to learn how to draw cartoons. Copying becomes fun. In the old way, you had to go to the art store, you had to buy tracing paper, and the process required so much energy. You needed to get the paper, find the drawing in the book. You had to find it online. If it was online, you had to print it out, and then the process of copying could begin. But with the iPad, the entire method comprises of just one or two steps. You download the image, and then you're already tracing, you're already learning how everything works. The next stage is drawing, and again, you need materials like pens or pencils or whatever you need to do while learning. This, again, is another trip to the art store, and honestly speaking, it might be fun to buy all the stuff, but it also involves sharpening pencils and finding refills, and it may not be so much fun. It may be a barrier. So what's happening is that the design, the tool has changed. The iPad has come in, or whatever mobile system you have, and it's allowing you to draw on that surface much faster, letting you copy faster, letting you color faster. We're talking about energy here. We're talking about how that difficulty level has reduced so dramatically that you can undo, add, erase, do whatever you want to do very quickly. And so the whole process becomes less tedious. Good habits require energy and fun. When we examine the nuance of good habits, we can make them almost as enjoyable as bad ones. And in doing so, we don't have to work so very hard, because between design and between energy, we're pretty much on our merry way. Even so, many of us don't want to get started with a new habit because we've been told that it takes a while for a habit to develop. Merely working on something for a few days isn't going to help. We need 21 days, we need 60 days, whatever those figures are. But is there any basis to the 21-day philosophy? I don't think so, and we'll cover that in the next podcast. So what did we do in this podcast? We looked at two facets of habits. And the first facet is just that design makes a huge difference. We were just Sean and Renuka in Holbox Island in Mexico. But they changed the design of those water bottles so that if we were there for 100 days, we'd have still been using just 2 bottles. And if we were in Houston for 100 days, we'd have used 200 bottles. So the design changed, we didn't change. And so when you do a course or you're learning something new, look for superior design. I know this is not easy because you might be trying to learn a language forever, and it's the design that's preventing you from learning the language, not necessarily the hard work or the persistence or whatever you want to call it. So it's the design that makes all of the difference. We start off with the habit being more fun because the design is in place. But the second thing, and this is even more crucial, is how much fun do you have along the way? Most people ignore this level of fun. It's one thing to say you've got to have a good habit, but the point is how you're going to put in points of fun as you go through the habit. Not the reward at the end. The reward at the end is fine, but along the way, because along the way is what gets you started, not the end point. For some people, it could be being part of a group. For some people, not being part of the group. For some people, it could be gold stars. For some people, something else. What we've got to figure out is that just like a kid who looks to get these little gold stars and fishes and all these things along the way, what are the things that you could put into place that make your habit more interesting? I'll give you an example. I was struggling with Spanish for a long time, and then after that, I started using this app called Anki, A-N-K-I, and I could put in pictures. And then later on, I figured out that I could have a scratch pad there. And so all of these things allowed me to have more fun. I wake up every morning and I study Spanish for half an hour, something that I never did. And the reason was most Spanish classes, online or offline, are always boring. There's no fun involved. And when you get that fun, you get that energy, and that's when the habit becomes something that you want to do, just like bad habits. So there's no difference between a good habit and a bad habit technically. It's the same thing. And if we want to swap it around, we have to look at these two aspects. A, design. B, energy. And if you come up with some of these ideas, let me know, because we'll put it in a future podcast. That's me saying bye for now, but first, let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. So the next thing that's showing up is the article writing self-study, and you have to be on the waiting list to get this self-study. And to do so, go to psychotactics.com/AW. That stands for article writing. So AW goodies. And you'll get some goodies while you're waiting. And they're all nice goodies. So that's psychotactics.com/AW goodies. A lot of people also want to know how we pre-sell. How do we manage to sell out a course so very quickly? How do we sell workshops so very quickly, which is often 24 hours? And this is documented in a course called the Pre-Sell Course. That's on the 22nd of November. If you go to the Psychotactics site and you look for products and pre-sell, you'll find it. If not, I'll give you the link. For now, just psychotactics.com/AW goodies. 5,000 BC members get first preference, and often they take up all the seats or all the products that we have to sell. So if you want first preference, you have to be a member of 5,000 BC. It's also a fun place to be. So we'll see you in 5,000 BC. And that's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye.